Hello everyone, this is G and I'm back with another video. Don't mind the headscarf, it's just a scarf. Sometimes I don't even feel like trying to put my hair into a hasty ponytail. Thick hair is hard to deal with. But anyway, I'm making this video because I literally just finished watching the first 2 episodes of Thundercats Roar. Oh my god, the torture. For those who may not know, Thundercats Roar is supposed to be another take on the Thundercats cartoon from the 1980s, which does have personal significance to me because Thundercats is probably the first cartoon I can recall seeing, which probably would have been between the ages of about 4 and 6. So let's say 5, right? I would have been 5 in 1990, so it's probably in syndication. It's the very first cartoon I can remember actually sitting down and watching. And for myself in particular, I actually had, or rather my mother bought me, a Sword of Omens toy, right? And so I would run around the apartment at the time, as a little kid does, shouting, Sword of Omens, give me sight beyond sight, and all that stuff. So the show it means something to me, right? And I did watch a little bit of the 2011 reboot, which I thought was good from a storytelling perspective, and I liked that how do I put it? There was a lot more story to be told, and it was much slower and more character driven. The only problem I think that it had really was that it wasn't really Thundercats. Right, it featured the Thundercats, but the plot and everything, the whole being part of like a kingdom that doesn't realize they're the bad guys, right? The conquering heroes who don't realize that they're harming others. I don't think that's a bad plot. It's just not really Thundercats, and I think a lot of people talk about how the show wasn't promoted properly, and there were low toy sales, and the airing times were its doom, and I certainly think all of that contributed. But I think that, again, just the non-Thundercat-ish plot, I think, played a bigger role than maybe people give it credit for. I don't think people really want a Thundercats who start out as the bad guys, right? The thing about Thundercats is that it's sort of them against the world, right? Or at least the new world that they end up on. But I didn't dislike it. I just acknowledged that, hey, it was this reimagining of Thundercats and applying a totally different story and plot to it. It wasn't bad, just not Thundercats. But this is terrible. Thundercats Roar is awful. The best way I can describe it is, if you're of a certain age, you probably remember a cartoon from Nickelodeon called Ren and Stimpy. Right, so basically take Stimpy and dress Stimpy up as a Thundercat, and then just multiply Stimpy several times over and dress him up as Lion-O and Panther and Chitara and all the other characters. That's basically this show. That's what it is. Visually, that's what it is. When it comes to the plot, there is no plot. There is no story. It's what it is. It's just Stimpy, right? Right? If the law in Full Metal Alchemist is all is one and one is all, then the application to this would be all is Stimpy and Stimpy is all, right? That's the best way, and that's the most, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess kind way I can describe it without devolving into a profane rant. There's no plot here. There is no character development. There's no story. In part because, first of all, I think that this is meant to be absurd. That's the thing. And I get it. There is absurdist humor and absurdist art. I'm not quite sure that this show is even doing absurdist humor or art correctly, but I do know it exists. But again, there's just nothing here, or almost nothing here, that is in any way positive. There is no storytelling. There is no character arcs. You can't even tell who the heck the characters are. Right? They look nothing like themselves. And I want to be clear, this art style is just plain ugly. They look like blob balloon people. You can do chibi and less detailed and stylistic. You can do that. Look at the Powerpuff Girls, right? Or look at Teen Titans, right? That was nowhere near as detailed as say Batman the animated series was, or X-Men or other cartoons that had come before it at the time. You can go with a more chibi, simplistic anime style. That's okay. But the characters should still look like themselves. The only thing they got right when it came to the character designs were the defining colors for each character, right? But Lionel has the red. I wouldn't even call it hair. It's a friggin' balloon. But he has the red. He has the blue, right? There's of course the yellow tannish color of his fur, right? The colors on Chitara are correct. Her quote unquote hair, right, has the cheetah spots. It's blonde. Again, her fur is appropriately colored. She has the orangey jumpsuit. Is it a jumpsuit? I guess leotard or unitard or whatever. Although honestly, but the way she's drawn here, since she's not given a female body of any type, it looks more like an orange singlet than necessarily like say a gymnast unitard. But again, they get the colors right. Like Panthro is just various shades of gray, so that's correct. I will give it that much. It's very little I can give it, but I'll give it that much. But there's 2 episodes. I would say really it's one episode. It's your first episode split up into 2 parts. Both were about 11 minutes long, right? And it's supposed to basically summarize how the Thundercats got here, right? The problem is that you don't really see how they got there. In the beginning, they have Jaga just basically explain that the planet of Thundera was about to blow up. Right? It's very Superman, right? The character is the world, their planet's about to blow up. They get into a spaceship and they try to find another world. They end up crashing on Third Earth, and Jaga died at some point in the process. But here's the thing. You never see this happening, right? It's just very bop, 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 right? It's a summary. It's not a story. That's the best way I can describe it. It's not a story. It's a summary. You don't see, how the people of Thundera felt, how the individual characters feel about their situation. You can't become connected to any of the characters because there's nothing to be invested in. You're not watching the end of one world, right, and then fleeing that and then going to another, right? It's just a summary. The planet blew up. They float in space for a bit, land on Third Earth. That's not a story. This is just. So then they land on Thundara, and again, everything is just stupid. Everyone acts stupid. No one has a discernible personality. Now they touch upon certain, I guess, traits, right? For example, Panthro, they show that he likes to build things, fix things. Lionel, of course, is very he's young and he's adventurous and he wants to go run off. Right, so at least they did include that. But then, when it comes to Chitara, they all of a sudden, for some reason, give her the character trait of being vain. And maybe because it's meant to be absurdist and nothing matters. Maybe it's just supposed to be a one-off joke. But she talks about how can I be the most awesome Thundercat if there's no one here to admire me? I'm like, that's not Chitara. Chitara was never like that. Chitara was like the wise older sister of the Thundercats. She wasn't known for being vain in any sense of the term. So why make her vain now? Wouldn't it actually be quite sexist according to progressivism today to basically make her an attention I'll say hound. I'm just gonna think of another term, but I'm trying to keep this clean. Wouldn't that just make her in an attention seeker? I don't understand it. But anyway, the story of nothing continues, and they eventually come upon some metallic Build-A-Bears or Build-A-Beavers, right? And this running gag with them that runs way too long is that every time they say the word Mumra, a lightning bolt comes and shocks them, right? That's it. That's all they are there for. You can't get attached to the characters, which is very bad because towards the end of the second episode, they make a self-sacrifice, right? They decide to grab on to Mumra, and they keep saying Mumra so that the lightning will come down and strike them, and then in turn strike Mumra, right? But here's the problem. This isn't like, say, in Ghost in the Shell, where the Tachikomas willingly, knowingly sacrifice their lives to save Bato and the Major, right? Since we learn nothing about the Beavers, their doing this just comes out of left field and makes no sense, and there's no emotional investment. I don't care if these little Build-A-Bot bear beaver things die or live or anything else. Their purpose in this show is just to go, hey, don't say the name Mumra, get electrocuted. Mumra, get electrocuted. That's it. That is it. That is all they are. They're a gag. They're a joke. Everything in this stupid cartoon is a gag and a joke. Nothing is played seriously. Now I know that many defenders of the show, because there were people coming out of the woodwork defending this atrocity, even when it was just still an idea, right? Like last year or the year prior when they first revealed they were working on this. We're going to come out of the woodwork. Here's what I have to say to them. There's a difference between making fun of the over-the-top nature, right, of Thundercats or of 80s and 90s cartoons in general, doing an affectionate parody, and then making fun of the storytelling process itself. Okay, just because the plot of your world blowing up, floating through space, and then landing on a planet is well, first of all, it's Superman, but second, is very, I guess you could say, fantastic or over the top, does not mean that the story needs to be so irritatingly, mind-numbingly dumb. You see, the reason why cartoons like Superman or Thundercats or He-Man or Biker Mice from Mars worked for their time periods is because those shows, even though, yes, the premise is probably the better word, might be considered over the top or silly or absurd, the actual in-series stuff, right, the actual work itself did not play these situations for silliness or for absurdity. It was treated seriously. The characters acted as if they were losing their home, right? When they were supposed to be scared, they were scared. When they were supposed to be angry, they were angry. There was an actual story being told here. That's not what's happening with this cartoon. There's no story, and that's the point. There's no character development, and that's the point. The whole, at least to me, having watched these 2 episodes, the whole purpose of this is, hey, do you remember those 80s cartoons that you loved? Yeah, they were all pointless. They were all silly. And we're just going to make this show to point out just how pointless and silly it all was. Because we don't really like Thundercats or cartoons or storytelling. We're just doing this to annoy you. That is absolutely the feeling I get, especially since Victor Corthright wrote the teleplay for this. So this man sat down, and wrote the dialogue. You want me to believe that you have a love and respect for Thundercats when you literally wrote the dialogue? And you have Lion-O act not like a young, inexperienced hero or a curious young man, but like a doofus. Like a doofus. There was one point in the first episode where a Lion-O's trying to get the Sword of Omens to work, right? And he starts saying the phrase, Sword of Omens, give me, and then he just throws the sword at the enemy bot. He just throws it randomly. He doesn't throw it because he sees a weakness, like an exposed wire or something, and he realizes that this is his one shot to actually maybe hit that, and then he throws it hoping, okay, let me hope I can hit the target. No. It's not that. It's, I'm gonna throw the sword now, because I'm an idiot. That's all it is. That's all it is. The only things that were good or tolerable about this show, in my opinion, were one, the colors. The colors are actually very good. I like the colors. There's several scenes, a whole section I would say, where Lion-O is in Mum-Ra's lair, so it's very dark, and the shading and the lighting really shines in those moments. So good job to the colorist and to whoever did the lighting and the shading, like especially in Mum-Ra's lair, when things glow, they glow, and it really adds to the atmosphere. So there's that. The voice acting is also the voices actually don't bother me. I actually think that the voice acting is pretty good. It's solid. The sad thing is that the voice actors don't really get to act. They're all just. It's like listening to a piss take of a recording session. But even in that, you can tell that these voice actors do have talent. They're just not being asked to use it. So there's that. So the voice acting, although there is no acting in the show, but that's not the actor's fault. The voice acting I thought was solid. Again, the colors are good. The lighting, especially in darker areas, was amazing. And there actually is exactly one part, where Lion-O wants to run into the forest and he wants to find out if there are bad guys or whatever, and Tigra speaks to him and he says, "No, we're on a new planet. We don't know, what's around us. We all need to stay together. And since you're the Lord of the Thundercats, you're our leader, right? You need to lead us, not just run off and do your own thing." That I thought was really good. I was like, yes, finally, an actual lesson. Someone actually imparting some wisdom. Then it all goes to pot because Lion-O doesn't listen. And then Panthro doesn't take his own advice. But at least for that moment, it was there. So those are the only, I can't even say redeeming, but it's like, not every single solitary thing was bad. The majority of it is bad. It's like 99.5% is bad. But those things that I just talked about, the colors and the shading and the lighting in that moment with Lion-O and Tigra, that's like the 0.5% that is actually good and actually worth giving praise to. Now, how do I rank this? I rank this as this should burn in the ninth circle of hell, in the deepest, darkest pit of the ninth circle of hell. Because, as I've said about comics that I've given this rating to, it's a betrayal. It's a betrayal of everything. And I know some people are going to go, well, it's a cartoon for kids. No, it's not. What can children get from this? I've seen children's cartoons. I grew up in the age of children's cartoons. There is nothing that that this show can do for children. I don't think it can entertain them because none of the characters are likable because none of them have personality. None of them. There's no cool character. There's no sweet character. There's no wise character. There's no character for a little kid to relate to or crush on or anything else. There's nothing to admire. So really, how in the world is a child, whether they are 4, 5, 10, or anything else, what is there for them to get attached to? Nothing. Right? Maybe especially little kids like toddlers, maybe they'll be pulled in by the bright colors. But that may be it. That's not enough to keep a child's interest. I'm sorry, it's not. Let alone for them to actually enjoy the show. So in my opinion, there's nothing here for kids. I don't think for a second it was actually made with a child audience in mind. And there's certainly not anything here for adults or teenagers or fans of the original show or fans of the 2011 show or just fans of decent flippin' cartoons. Something can be not made for you and not to your liking and still be good. Right? There are plenty of things. Take Adventure Time. Is Adventure Time my type of cartoon? No, but it's a good cartoon. Or take Steven Universe. Is Steven Universe to my taste? Not really, not my thing, right? But that doesn't mean it's a bad cartoon. Or take My Little Pony, right? Not my thing. But I've seen a few episodes. I thought it was good as a cartoon. It's just not something I would personally sit down and watch several times over. So you can certainly have shows like that. Hell, even when I was a kid, Powerpuff Girl, I saw many episodes because my brother loved it. I didn't like it, but I can't say it was bad. I didn't like it because it was bad. I didn't like it because it just didn't appeal to me, right? So you can have shows like that, but in my opinion, this is not that show. And the interesting thing is that from what I saw on Google, for what it's worth, from what I saw on Google, apparently only 14% of the viewing audience has reported liking this cartoon, if you want to call it that. 14%. You done goof, Cartoon Network. Oh, and keep in mind, I don't like being forced to have to download an app. I don't want to watch a cartoon that I don't like. And I immediately uninstalled the Cartoon Network app as soon as I was done, because I don't need the app. When you feature something this poor, this is a brightly colored steaming pile of crap. So why the hell am I gonna keep your app? But anyway, this last part I'm going to direct to Victor Cartwright, who's one of the co-producers, and according to the credits, he wrote the teleplay, right? So the script, right, is his fault. Dear Victor, if you don't like Thundercats, which clearly you don't, you cannot make something like this and convince me that you like Thundercats or have any sort of respect for it. So if you don't like Thundercats, which clearly you don't, then don't work on Thundercats. Don't bring back Thundercats. Because there's a story you actually could tell about with Thundercats. You could tell a story about escaping disaster and having to rebuild and live in this untamed, unknown world and having to adjust to that. There's a story about brotherhood and family and staying together. There's a story just in Lion-O alone of a young man having to basically grow up fast, right, and lead his people in this unknown situation. There's a story in here about good versus evil, about standing up to evil and confronting it. We need stories like this. Kids need stories like this. Adults need stories like this. Humanity needs stories like this. But if you are not willing to tell those stories that can be found in the work, if you're not willing to do that, if you're going to treat your audience, whether they be 6 or 36, if you're going to treat your audience like they're dumb, if you're going to treat the work itself like it's silly and it's stupid and nothing matters, then do not work on Thundercats. If you're not willing to actually tell us a story, then don't work on the show. Okay? If you're still angry at your brothers for them picking on you when you were a little boy, and I'm bringing this up because you mentioned it, buddy. You mentioned it in the interviews that you were doing about the show when it was first mentioned. If you're still salty about that after all these years, then you A, need to work that on your own, and B, finally confront your brothers about it. Okay? Grow up, be a man, tell your brothers that it wasn't cool that they picked on you when you were a kid. Don't take something that is beloved to many people and basically act out your little petty revenge fantasy against your brothers on that work. If you can't respect the work, if you can't keep your own personal animosities and jealousies and whatnot out of the work, then don't work on the work. Don't work on Thundercats. I'm not watching this again. I'm not downloading the Cartoon Network app again. This thing is not worth your time. It's not worth your money. Fortunately, the episodes are free, but guess what? Even when something's free, you are losing, or rather, you are spending time and you are spending brain cells. My time and my brain cells are much more important than this stupid ass cartoon. I hate even calling it a cartoon because that's just insulting to the art form of cartoons. This is a turd. It is a brightly colored turd. Avoid, avoid, avoid at all cost. One more thing I actually will say somewhat positively about it. At the end of each episode, there's this little slowed down, relaxed version of the Thundercats theme that plays. That's nice. I actually really enjoy it as an instrumental. But such a beautiful, calming instrumental should not be in any way attached to this trash fire of a cartoon. So anyway, that is my review of the first 2 episodes, and for me, last 2 episodes of Thundercats Roar. This is not Thundercats. This is just a plain insult. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments, especially if you've seen it, and I will see you around the next one. Have a good day, everybody. Bye.